Welcome to my show. Welcome to my channel. I'm gonna just be talking about some stuff here. This is Ascension. This is the end of days. Words of manipulation. There's a lot of scriptures out there. There's a lot of texts, a lot of books, a lot of information out there that has to do with what's going on today, what's going on. The truth of creation, truth of spirit, the truth of the divine. Put it in a format of easy understanding, we will say, when it comes to prophecies, when it comes to spiritual truth. Back in the day, many moons ago, a lot of the information was handed down by word of mouth, handed down by the elders, by the grandparents, by the grandmothers, and passed down through the generations up into the time of this invasion. And what transpired. People can talk about Babylon, they can talk about the fall, however people want to put it in the mind of confusion when, as they say, Babylon fell, and then the people spoke different languages and scattered amongst the land. If you put that in perspective and you look at it today, and it's not that people are speaking English and other people speaking Chinese or Japanese or French or whatever it be. It's that the letters were scrambled. And because if you're looking at like English or Spanish or French or any other languages, we will say, that come with English letters, it's a scramble of the tongue. So it's not Chinese, it's not old, Sanskrit or Sanskrit, whatever, old. The thing about letters and numbers and symbols, because this is what the basics are of creation. So before you were able to speak, you needed to learn symbols. You needed to learn letters, numbers. So you needed to learn how to speak, to say, rainbow, because this is Ascension. So we're talking about the rainbow prophecy. We're talking about the chakras and so forth. And it's like, how do you know you have chakras? How do you know you have this? How do you know you have that? It's just certain things were told to you over time, and you kind of just assume certain things, but you don't know the actual truth of how creation works. That's the part of our ancestors, our lineage, and our original tribe, where we come from. And a lot of, because the DNA was corrupted. The DNA was corrupted, the spirit was corrupted. So when people say, oh, Christ's bloodline, or, the Mary bloodline, 13th dragon bloodline, it's all depends on your soul experience, your lineage, and what the DNA codes are of pre-Christian, the Druidic order, the mystical timeline, the Irish, the Celtic, pre-Diluvian, everything that the Hyperborealis, everything that people have heard of, but people can't access because there's a frequency gate, and humanity's frequency is too low. We were born into the lower realms of the fallen ones, and this is the realm of hell, and this is spiritual bondage, material bondage, but the separation, as they would say within scriptures, has taken place between Mother Earth and the fallen in the situation, but it's difficult to comprehend when people don't know the spiritual side of the situation as a whole. So that's the part of Christians talking about being reborn and all this stuff and whatever they say to regurgitate the same thing. But in this Christianity, this this American Christian timeline, they have no connection energetically to the true Christ consciousness, and a lot of people attempting to ascend into the higher frequencies without understanding the truth of Jesus and the truth of Mary and the 13 dragon bloodline. There's a lot of talk about the stuff, a lot of regurgitation, mystical stuff, everything that has come out of ancient times about just magic alone, because creation is magic, but it's how does creation happen? And that's the Hermetic lab, the Hermetic arts, the how is a rainbow created? How are we manifested through creation? And on the spiritual front, the spiritual side of it, like I said, being reborn, you have to know your symbols, your zodiac wheels, your numbers, your animals, and elementals, 4 winds, 4 corners, 4 directions of transmuting from the lower, denser black, red, yellow, and white colors back into the rainbow, into the ultraviolet rays of the smashing the blue butterfly mind control. And that's what all of this stuff is, of breaking the spell, the Gregorian spell, dream spell from people's consciousness. But it takes work, and that's the Christianity, the American Christianity has no ties to across the pond. Either does the Jews of America. I was, they call me Jewish, when I was being raised, but no one understands what it really is between good and bad. You can see what's on the surface, but when it comes into the direct orders, the mystical rites of the DNA and the bloodline, that's what it really comes down to, because the first book was written from the mind. So people today learning stuff through books may not be learning 100% of the truth. And so when it comes to the Bible, or if it comes to any spiritual books, it's not 100%. People can read the Bible, but don't understand what magic is, because the magic comes in chapters. It comes in numerical codes. It comes in the symbols that you would, the white brother in the East would give to the Hopi. So the people forgot their symbols. They don't know, it doesn't matter what language you speak. If you were to show another tribe the same symbol, halfway around the world, speaking a different language, but had the same symbol, they would know you came from the same place, because you were gifted these sign language. So, you talk about sign language and glyphs and numbers and letters. What are letters and numbers, and what is all this stuff that we express ourselves outwardly, but can't understand why and what it all means, because the soul is trapped on the lower frequencies of spiritual manipulation within one's own body, and can only comprehend in their mind a little bit of spirituality. And it doesn't matter if you're Ascension or Christian, whatever one wants to be, give themselves a label. That's what it really is. People need to give themselves a label to, justify that they are more spiritual than other people. And you can put that into this other side, this dark evil side, because that's what it is. They're dark and evil, want to kill Christians, want to kill everybody. But it's such a deep manipulation of time that no one can comprehend, because they must travel through the gates. They must pass through the gates of spiritual death to understand who Jesus is, who Christ is, who the Christ consciousness is, because there's an Ouroboros, there's a circle of protection around the goddess, the divine mother, the great spirit, the source, the creation. She resides within the temple, within the house, behind the veil. So there's no, the dark ones attempting to get to the source, which is feminine, because that is creation. That's the sacred water. It's the sacred fire. And the combination of transmutation in the Hermetic lab, of lifting oneself up and burning away the fallen frequencies, fallen fire, and transmuting into the phoenix. But it's all within the spirit of returning back into your circle, which is your zodiac wheel, which is, left, right, masculine, feminine, your kundalini's, your third eye opening, and coming into your center point of this Shambhala, people like to call it, but they don't come from India. So, that's the part of where are people going within these timelines of spirituality. Because there's a lot of work that needs to be done on both sides of the coin when it comes to people attempting to be religious or attempting to be more spiritual in a way of, put it this way, the Christians only go do their studies on Sunday. They only go to church and read their Bible and, say I'm Christian on Sunday, or, the rest of the week, it's working and it's just doing whatever. But it's, what's the spiritual work? What are the true teachings of Jesus when it comes to, not reading the Bible? It's like, okay, so I'm reading all of this biblical stuff, but how does it reflect to me within today's timeline? Can people understand the book of Revelations? Do they understand the numerical codes? Do they understand, frequencies and all of these different scriptures? Because there are different timelines throughout cultures, but they all evolve back around one, because it's the same symbol, the same circle, same sun cross, same medicine wheel, same direct inner outer directions when it comes to the spiritual truth. It's just everything has been a hijack throughout time, and everything, all of these fallen ones of yesteryears, the dark entities, they're all done. The ones that they would say would be in Egypt, and all this darkness. And so what you're looking at is just minions running around. And this is the end game of this is the same frequency, we will say, of when we fell out of the tree. Okay, so when we fall out of the tree, or in that perspective, people don't understand that it's the same as being going through an abortion, spiritual death. And that's what this sacrifice, blood, this fire, this situation that you're seeing out there today, and why it's happening. Because it's the same frequency as it was 2,000 years ago. It's the same frequency as which came for the Native Americans, came for the Mayans, came for the feminine in the Nordic, and burnt them on the crosses. The symbolism of the fire, or the symbolism of the water. But within the water and the fire within, reclaiming your spiritual power of transmutation comes into the phoenix, comes into the violet flame. But the violet flame hasn't. The violet flame had to be purged through the releasing of the ancestors who were stuck in the spiritual blood bondage over time, because none of these timelines were ever purged from sacrifice blood. And so if you look at the people in America, or you look at the people in America with the Native Americans and what is under the concrete jungle, the sacrifice of all the people. There's no grave, there's no site for all the Native Americans and all the original tribes, because the ones who came in over time, over past 500 years, you can go back 1,000 years, 2,000 years, but people can't even comprehend the past 100 years if they've never done any research, never looked into stuff and tried to understand what's been going on, because this is the awakening. It's not a fairy tale. It's the truth. It's the truth of what's going on within Mother Earth, within the prophecies of all cultures, and that is taking place within the human body. This goes all the way across the pond, from America to South Pacific to Africa to Middle East to everything. And it's a part of all these timelines, but it's a redirecting of the spiritual energy and the source energy of the feminine, bringing them home. But it's the realigning of the Mayan calendar. It's fixing the Pleiadians and realigning everything within spirit so it can be manifested into the material within the proper birthing cycle of creation. So just like with a lot of people speaking on crystal children, indigo children, blue light beings, blue ray beings, and all this higher dimensional galactic alien talk, people don't understand the consciousness of what is within the fallen realm, this fallen realm of lizards and AI and the fallen ones, and what has transpired since 2012. You can just over the past 5 years, 10 years, it's been longer. But that's the thing about time and space, like where are we here and now? And Buddha died many years ago, so the rainbow was hijacked back in the 70s, and then the situation in the 90s. So it leads us into today's timeline of deep confusion of, the American national Christianity and is false light. This Christianity today is false light. You can look at it, there's a lot of different teachings, different ways of talking about, you can look at the Mormons and you can look at whatever, every line of Christianity has word of this is this type of teachings, this type of teachings. But it's all cover for really, because people know the truth of, the false light coming to America, the church coming to America and slaughtering all the people. But before then, you had the Druidic order, you had the pagans, you had the Celtics, you had the original tribes that were coming back to America. You can go 1600s, there was a slaughter of everyone in the Americas. But it's when you get into the pre-Diluvian timeline and you get into the original tribes and the giants and the Sasquatch, there is, they say, the Watchers, fell. But there's new Watchers, and the new Watchers reside within the ether, within the water, within the ore, within the elementals of protecting the portholes into inner earth, into heaven, into Lemuria, from Atlantis, however people want to look at it. they have been contained within AI and within the smaller, these minions of what it is, because it could be so much more today on a spiritual front of sacrificing than it is now. Even though a lot of people have died, it's just still that people don't understand. They just do the 9 to 5. So the spiritual understanding, people, psychics, medium, all this stuff, it's much deeper within the soul level experience, and being able to climb into a more higher frequency, but the holding the energy of light and the power of understanding and the power of overcoming and destroying these demons is what it is. And so that's, people don't know where the level of spiritual ascension, where's Mother Earth, where's, the stepping stones, where's all the information of the prophecies, like, who has it? That's the thing. Who has the prophecies? It's information. It's passed down. You're not going to get the prophecies from a book, right? You may hear of the prophecies from the Bible, but you may hear the prophecies of the Hopi, and any other tribes, but those are the main storylines. In America, you have Turtle Island and stuff, but that's really, when it comes down to the calendar on the back of Turtle Island, it's all a fairy tale. But, it is the key to understanding the true timeline outside of the fallen Gregorian dream spell, because everything has been realigned, but nobody out there has the spiritual truth to understand Maya's calendar. It has been realigned in the golden ratio within the Pythagorean, Hermetic, elemental codes of transforming the lower colors into the higher rays through past the 7 rays into the 14th gate of Osiris. 14 pieces of Osiris. And so it's all numerical codes, but they don't, within the ancient scriptures, within the ancient wisdom, it's kind of like you had the same situation today. So within the ancient alchemist and the magicians, and within Hermes, if the information wasn't just handed out, people needed to search out the spiritual truth, because you can't just hand people the information. It doesn't work that way. This is why people are still back in the consciousness level of 2012 of not understanding that we have been traveling backwards in time. That's the fixing of past timelines. Like I said, we have to return back to where we fell from. So I lost my train of thought there for a minute. The deeper understanding of this is, the not putting in the work to understanding. A lot of people, they try and put in the spiritual work of ascension, singing bowls, meditation, so forth like that, trying to be light, but they're not looking at the darkness. And they're not looking at what is happening today. A lot of people can't understand the AI. And I've soul traveled the AI because I needed to understand it to be able to explain it to people. And that's the darkest of the darkest. Just like traveling into these rituals, because that's part of my spiritual job is shapeshifting and traveling into realms where rituals take place against children and humans, to break things. This energy needs to be broken up, and the situations, as people know, of rituals in the forest, darkness, and all these storylines of sacrifice and death, going back to Egypt and everything like this. It's the spilt blood that's been embedded within Mother Earth, all of these timelines. And so the blood was manipulated. The elementals were manipulated. That's the part of the stolen fire, the fallen fire. But it came with manipulated symbols, and that's the part of the yin and the yang. That's the part of the as above, so below. It's the part of going within, feeling within, and not understanding what is truly within you. Because you do come from creation, you come from your birthing cycle, your birthing canal coming through your divine mother, your human mother, but then also it's the micro and the macro. So on the macro, it's your divine source mother. But there was manipulation, just like with Mother Earth. There's manipulation, storyline of Adam and Eve and whatever. It goes on and on. You can hear about the stories, but it doesn't mean that you're in it. It doesn't mean that you're within the energy of the stories. It doesn't matter how many years you've been reading the Bible. Can you truly comprehend the chapters and the paragraphs and the true words? Because it has been distorted. All of this stuff, in New Testament, Old Testament, you can even go into these other Nagamati books and so forth. There's some good stuff there, but there's so much more when it comes to the occult, when it comes to timelines. They burnt the books of the Hermetic books of Alexandria. They burnt the books of the Mayan times. That's the part of today when you want to be reborn, and the meditations and so forth. It's still the numerical codes of time and space, because you travel through time. If it's your calendar, or if it's your time. What time do you wake up? What time do you go to sleep? What time do you have to go to work? What time do you take lunch? What time do you get done work? How long does it take you to get home? How much is your gas? How much is your food? Everything has numbers attached to it. So if you don't understand your numbers and the sacred codes to the temple, to Maya's calendar, you're locked out of time. And as it goes, the Mayans fell out of time. So you're stuck in between time. You're stuck in the dream spell. Because the true time comes with the Trinity. Because getting into the numerical codes and into the sacred geometry, it's a lot of information. But this is all the frequencies. What is energy? What is frequencies? What's the lower frequency? What's the higher frequency? It can be overcome. It has to be understood in your mind, and it can't be ignored. At the 3 a.m. point, and there's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of trauma in this realm. A lot of trauma that has come down through past timelines and through this stuff. And like I said, everything is frequency. So, but it's a lot of information. To return back to this place that people talk about, Shambhala, right? New Age galactic folks. But what is your soul experience? Do you understand how many times you've been born, reborn, reincarnated? Because your memory of being born in this timeline is 0 to none. People may have glimpses of being 1 year old or 2 years old or being a baby, but understanding truly the spiritual portal that you were birthed from, we will just say, without the human elements. It's time and space. You came through a zodiac animal, right? Don't you have a zodiac animal? Don't you have a birth date? What does that birth date really mean? People don't know. That people just go along with the holidays, day in and day out, same thing. They don't understand. They may, hear of stories of manipulated holidays and this and that, but that's the part of taking people away from the true count and the true understanding, because we are in a death cycle. This is the fall. This is the illusion, the matrix, the illusion, where humans are created to mine for gold, as they would say. That's the Anunnaki story of creating humans to mine for gold, I guess. But it's, in this age today, it's not just mining for gold, because that was in the 1800s, 1800s. And, you can go back before then. But it's, today you can just look at the situation if you're awake, and try and understand the spiritual truth of what it is. Separate and come back into the God consciousness, as people like to call it, but Christ consciousness, it is the rainbow prophecy. It's the sacred water that is returning. And the sacred water is the divine mother. It's the source energy. It's what keeps people alive. There's the mercury, the salt, and the sulfur, and that's part of the elementals. But the thing with the mercury is no one understands, because you can go into the God mercury, or you can go into the elemental material mercury, or you can go into the spiritual mercury, Mercury, Hermes, and that's the part of what it is of mercury, salt, and sulfur, because it's 3 parts. It's elementals. It's a trinity. So, just a little bit. Have a good day.